Hey guys, what is happening? Niad here with Film Comics Explained. We are back with the second chapter of Prometheus Omega, and the finale to the Fire and Stone Anthology. When we had left, we witnessed Galgo and Angela attempting to hunt. Ahab had come in to rescue them after they were overpowered by one of the armored pigs. He then left them one pig and a set of weapons he had made them as offerings before leaving. Galgo has regained the confidence of Angela, Chris, and Jill, and we see them playfully jesting him. This fun, however, was interrupted by the heavy sound of thunder as the Helios tore through the atmosphere at breakneck speeds. After the crash, Eldon had slowly come out of the ship. Angela then told Galgo to head back inside while she cared for Eldon. The next morning, Eldon began a metaphysical and existential discussion with Angela about the nature of the soul and the existence of God, while scavenging parts to make a bullhorn transmitter. It is at this point that Angela realized they could use whatever is creating the signal inside of the mountain to amplify their bullhorn. We head back to the cave, where Angela is frantically looking through Russell's notes. She tells the group that the beacon was human in origin, suggesting it could have been something that crashed here, predating the escape pod. She then jumps to the conclusion that it must be Wayland and the Prometheus. Galgo disagrees and asks her how many more people she wanted to kill, looking for her ghost. While the two are arguing, Jill tells them they should go. She explains that none of them will say it, but they all know that no one is coming for them. She goes on to say that the company will not spend money on 2 years of hypersleep to rescue a salvage crew on an off-the-books mission. She grabs onto Chris and says that even if they do, that's 2 years of waiting that they do not have. Jill begins to cough into a handkerchief as Chris tells them that they will stay here while the other two explore. Angela tells them that they have to go together, as they will be sitting ducks here by themselves. Jill replies by saying, "Not if you leave us the gun." Galgo jumps in saying, "Oh hell no." He disagrees with Angela's plan, which is essentially to use the flying driller to get into the mountain. He tells her that it barely made it here from Hadley's Hope, and now it is crawling with bugs, and explains that unless she has a fumigator handy, that gun is the only chance they have of clearing it. Angela tells him that they have Eldon. Galgo is furious and says, "Oh yeah, that's right, our AI forklift turned psychopath. I know, better idea. Let's give him the gun." Angela tells him that the gun stays with Jill and Chris, and when Galgo asks her about the fumigation, she explains that she has an idea. Angela and Galgo are standing in the clearing looking at the xenobugs that have sprawled all over the Onager. Galgo tells her that her plan is bunk, but she reassures him that he will come. Galgo then asks her why she doesn't act as bait if she is so sure. Angela then replies by saying, "Because it's not me he shows up to protect, it's you. Like it or not, you were the damsel in distress in this scenario." She tells him that they can go back and get Eldon if he wants, and Galgo responds by saying he'd sooner trust a bug. Angela then tells him it's his call before saying, "Now be a good girl and tie yourself to the train tracks." I love the humor injected into the series towards the end. The start was pretty morbid for the first 3 quarters, where all we saw was death, so it's great to see some lightness to prevent the tone from being too heavy or depressing. Galgo yells out that this is bunk as he walks towards the Xenos. Once they've noticed him, they start to screech in confusion and excitement. Galgo tells them to keep making noise as his buddy is going to turn them all into a bug baby necklace any minute now. Angela turns back and asks where the old man Ahab was. At that moment, the bugs start to run straight at him. Just when Galgo is about to be torn to shreds, Eldon jumps in and says hello. He takes them all on with each of his 4 hands. We see him snapping the heads of 2 as the others continue to bite him. Galgo then makes a break for it. We can see the queen inside. She hits the glass, furiously agitated that her children are being killed. Galgo tells Angela that Mama is pissed and they need to go before she squeezes out. Angela yells that Eldon just saved his life and they can't leave him. Galgo replies by saying that he is merely a robot, before saying that if they get off the rock, he will name a hard drive after him. Angela then grabs a rock in desperation, and Galgo restrains her, saying that she is insane if her plan is to just throw a rock. She asks what he is doing, and Galgo tells her he is saving her life, as they both look up to see Ahab jumping down from behind. He then lands and kills 2 of the creatures, before looking on at the Queen behind Eldon. She breaks through the glass, and we can see her inner teeth extended to reach Eldon's head. Angela yells at him to look out. We see Ahab jumping down on the Queen with his blade, which he sticks through her head and down through the bottom of her mouth. Once he lands, the xenobugs begin to wail before running away in fear. Angela then runs towards Eldon and asks if he can hear her. His face and parts of his body have been chewed through and bitten. He tells her that he is not ready to die, and Angela responds by saying, "Good, I'm not ready to let you." She tells him to stay with her. Galgo then approaches Ahab and asks if he is okay. He tells him to grunt positively or something to let him know that he is alright. The Predator then pushes Galgo aside, who yells at Angela to move out of the way. Angela tries to hold the Predator back, but he merely pushes her aside. Ahab grabs either side of Eldon's face as Angela yells at him to stop. She tries to explain that he is with them, and Galgo replies by saying he doesn't speak English. Eldon then tells them that he doesn't have to. He explains that the scar on his forehead was given to him by one of his kind and is the mark of their clan. He tells them that he isn't trying to hurt him and calls Ahab brother. We can see the Predator and Eldon butting heads. Galgo yells out that this is just great, before asking if Eldon had earned that while attacking his ship. Eldon turns to him and says yes, before explaining that he is evolving. Galgo yells out for the love of God as Angela tells him to get inside. We can see the remainder of the unique bug queen that Ahab had just killed. Galgo looks at the Queen and asks how long she probably had been there. Angela replies by saying, "Long enough to get too big to get out." Galgo simply says, "Duh." Angela then enters the bridge, and Galgo bets her 50 credits that the ship won't start. Angela agrees and plays with a few buttons before powering it up to his surprise. We see the Onager flying as Galgo asks how much further until they get there. Angela asks him if he needs a potty break, and Galgo says no, explaining that it's because Eldon is breathing down his neck. He asks him what he is doing, and Eldon tells him that he can smell his guilt and his lies. He goes on to explain that fear has a smell, much like deceit, before stating that he stinks of deception, like he had bathed in it. Galgo tells him that he isn't even human, and Eldon simply replies by saying that he grows more delighted by that with each passing day, causing the Predator to lose his shit. Galgo turns around and asks if Ahab is laughing, and if he was actually able to understand them all along. Angela then tells them to knock it off as they make their approach. Now, the Onager is a mining vehicle with sophisticated laser drilling technology. Angela activates this as she tells them they're going in. We see the lasers cut through the rock as the ship begins to descend into the unknown void. Eldon tells Galgo that he forgives him for his lie, and Galgo tells him to shut up as they begin to hear the sound of metal bending and scraping. Angela asks what it is. They soon discover that they have a major problem. The blood from the alien queen has begun to tear through the hull. Eldon tells them that they should have drained her blood before they set off. The front of the ship has also begun to corrode, and Angela asks how they have bug blood at the front. The glass in front of her cracks as the ship begins to break down. Angela then realizes that the ship was in a stream of acid blood. Angela covers her mouth and asks where it is all coming from, and Eldon explains that it's a vein. He then tells them that the mountain is alive. The ship then begins to violently shake. Galgo yells out that they are either going to be crushed to death by the living mountain or digested by its blood. Angela then spots a landing in front of them and tells them that they are not going to die. Galgo calls out for her to floor it, and we see the Onager hurl itself forward with its last legs. Eldon then literally carries both Angela and Galgo off the ship safely. Galgo sarcastically says that this was a good idea. Angela then picks up the signal and tells them that it's leading her up ahead. They reach a wall and Galgo asks why they have stopped. Angela tells him that the signal is there. She suggests that they can pry bits of bone to dig through the fleshier parts of the wall, and Eldon says no. She then goes on to say that it's not ideal without shovels, but says it's the best that they can do, before Eldon says no again, and when she asks him why not, he replies by saying because it is alive. He tells them that it's a being that must have been on Wayland's ship, which has now grown up and around it. The accelerant, which was in abundance here, evolved it too fast. Like the queen they had seen in the Onager, it had essentially become a prisoner of its own flesh. We see spikes begin to protrude from the walls, and Galgo tells them that the flesh is closing in around them. Angela then tells Eldon that the only shot that they have of getting back out was finding whatever was left of Wayland's ship. She tells him that she is going there, and he will have to kill her to stop her. Eldon simply tells her that he does not want to do that. Galgo states that he had just watched him rip the wings off 15 bugs, and now he's a pacifist. Eldon tells him that that was different. The walls are getting closer and closer. Galgo then yells at Eldon, asking if it was also different when he attacked his ship to get to Francis. Eldon says no, and that Galgo should have known better than anyone. That was exactly the same, as we see him leaning into the walls with his arms extended. We can see he's being absorbed by the interior of the creature. He tells him that he had sought out Francis as they seek out Wayland, in the same way that Wayland himself sought out his gods. He explains that they all crave meaning and have a thirst for understanding. In their arrogance, they believe that they were made to serve some higher purpose, and that knowledge of that purpose would free them. He goes on to comment on the hubris they all share by saying that if our gods will not give it to us, then we will steal it, so that we may become gods ourselves. But we are none of us more than this miserable creature, broken toys and mundane miracles. He says that they made us, and Angela cuts in saying because they could, as the realization begins to sink in. We can see Eldon is now a part of the walls, much like the concept art of H.R. Giger's original work on Alien, which I freaking love. Angela tells him that the walls are closing in and defeatedly says that she is not ready to die. Eldon looks down at her and says, "Angela, I'm not ready to let you." He then speaks to the creature in the mountain by saying hello. We see a small hole appear in the side of the mountain. Eldon tells him to hurry and says that he will hold it open for as long as he can. Angela looks at him and sincerely thanks him. She then yells at the other two to hurry before it closes. Angela is able to get out, but we see Ahab has lost his footing. Galgo then tells the old man to exit before it snaps shut on both of them. Galgo reaches his hand in and tells Ahab that he has him. We see him helping him out of the mountain, as he reassures Ahab that he is okay. We see the three of them walking towards the sunrise. She begins to laugh as she yells out that they made it. The Predator also begins to laugh out loud. Galgo is annoyed and tells them to laugh it up. He points out that they have no beacon, no ship, and have now lost the onager, asking what they get for all that. Angela tells him they are alive, as we see Jill and Chris approaching them. She then tells them that's all they get. They look up at the primordial landscape, as she tells them that's all any of them get. And that is the end of the epic Fire and Stone anthology. Ah man, what a ride. Thank you for joining me on an incredible adventure. Do not worry, Fire and Stone is followed up by Life and Death, an anthology that was constructed in the same manner as Fire and Stone. There we will see the fate of Galgo, Jill, Chris, Angela, and Ahab the Predator. Please let me know what you guys think of this episode, and the overall story arc in the comments below. With that in mind, that's all that we have time for today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and to subscribe to stay up to date on all my content. I'm Niat with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.